Peter Gay, what's up?
Hi, Edu Enka. Top in the news this week. We'll begin first with the latest regarding the corned beef ban. As you know, corned beef is a staple across the Caribbean. Everybody loves their corned beef, and so a lot of persons were worried when they heard that they'll have to stay away from it for a while because there's this big scandal embroiling Brazil, the world's largest exporter of red meat and poultry, where apparently for some years now it has been found out by Brazilian investigators that there are some meat exporters who have been sending out and packaging meat that's either rotten or basically unfit for human consumption. And so quite a few countries in and outside of the region placed temporary bans on imports of canned meat or meats from Brazil, and that included the BVI. Now, this afternoon, a joint statement from the Environment Health Division and the Ministry of Health stated that that temporary ban here in the BVI has been lifted. And this is because Grace Kennedy has informed the government officials here that regarding their canned meat products, everything is okay based on the information that they have from Brazil's Secretariat of Animal and Plant Health. So the CEO of Grace Foods, based in Jamaica, Don Webby, says that the information they have gotten, they are satisfied that corned beef is not among the items under scrutiny in Brazil, and that none of the meat plants that supply them with their meat products are involved in the investigation. So BVI landers, residents here in the BVI, go on out and buy your corned beef or get back into your cupboards and go at it.
Well, that's not one of my staples, so, but we have to be careful of packaged products altogether, because a lot of times, sometimes you get expired products, sometimes what they say is in the package is not in the package. And we don't have our own investigative team here in the Virgin Islands, so we are usually taking somebody else's word that the products that they're selling is good, and you can see how that could be a conflict of interest. So we need to be careful of what we eat in packages, period. So I hope everything goes well.
All right, so Edu Enka, the next half of our top news making the rounds this week. Now, last week, the governor, 2 weeks ago, the governor took over the news headlines and the airwaves with his invoking of his constitutional power to force the government to turn over some funds to the RVIPF. This week, we learned that those funds are in fact more than just the $800,000 that the governor initially spoke of. And not only is it more than the $800,000, in fact, it's a total of some $1.8 million, which will encompass not only the RVIPF, but the legislative arms of the government, which also falls under the governor's purview, so that they can execute their duties, including 2 cases. One, the extradition matter involving Bob Hart and Tico Harrigan, as well as a corruption case involving members of the RVIPF. Now, while some persons are or have been in support of the governor's move and welcome that move because they're basically frustrated with, the pace of the government in several areas, such as resourcing the RVIPF, as well as paying its vendors, which, these persons have said they think that it's symptomatic of administrative and monetary problems in the government. There are other persons who aren't too sure about the motive of the governor, even though he says this is basically to ensure probity and to ensure that the funds are there so that these arms can execute their jobs as they need to. Now, remember that last Friday, the governor gave a second press briefing. And in that press briefing, he sought to put aside or disabuse persons of the claim that he's attempting to usurp the power of the premier.
There is a lack of clarity as to what has been approved, what monies remain in the budget, and who has approved it, whether it has been approved under the SAPs, whether it has been approved under the budget estimates, or where it has been approved. And the memo from the Financial Secretary set out very clearly that that clarity is missing. And therefore, to say that it's, as some in the press has said that, I've authorised 1.8 million from the Consolidated Fund is incorrect. That's not what I'm doing. What I'm doing is making sure that that 1.8 million, which is required for the police operating budget and for the legal services to carry out 2 particular cases that we have before us, is properly accounted for, is properly authorised, and is properly dispersed quickly. Now, I'm not usurping the power of the Premier. I'm working with the Premier to make sure that this process is carried out properly.
So, Ejo Enka, some persons still not, well, in fact, even members of the media, we still haven't gotten that answer yet as to, yes, you're seeking these funds for these arms of government, but what is it at the end of the day that really prompted you to step in to use that big stick, using your constitutional powers? And so other persons across the territory are also questioning what they see as an overreach on the part of the governor. And the suspicions that's coming to us, Ejo Enka, is that they're wondering, is this the governor acting on behalf of the UK? Because the UK is has questions about some things happening in the BVI, such as concerns raised by even legislators about this airport expansion project, and even possibly, relationships that the government is entering into with new partners. Now, the governor did respond to that question about whether or not this is a directive from the UK government, and he said, no, here he is.
I am here to take judgments and decisions which, in my view, are on the basis of evidence and advice from a wide variety of people. They're not intended to be popular. They may be popular, but that's not what I'm here for. I'm not here to make popular decisions. I'm here to make the right decision. It's not a warning to them across the board. It is a seriously strong advice that the government, which is elected, has to provide the funding for internal security. And there's not an option on that. Now, I think we've been reasonable in what we have asked for. Section 103 is a governor's decision. It is not a decision which comes from London. But of course, I have informed London of my decision and my intention to take that decision.
And so, Ejo Enka, with Brexit in the midst, and the new opposition leader says, yes, Governor, go at the government so we can get some answers. But persons are also wondering, does the former opposition leader have a point when he says that the governor's move is indicative of a soft takeover? Ejo.
I don't know. I don't have much more to say about it. It's, according to the governor, the funds were there. He just wanted to make sure that they are appropriated and are allocated properly. So the question is whether these are additional funds or existing funds that were slow to come. You're not quite sure. He obviously cleared it with the UK. He might have his diplomatic doublespeak, but according to his words, he did consult with them. And so that's sort of indicative of him clearing it with the UK, his decision. But should he have had to, according to him, for such a simple cooperative matter with the Premier, was it necessary for him to have a pre-planned press conference with the news media waiting outside for him to come out and announce his decision and make it into a media spectacle? If they agreed and they were cooperating and working together, it was something that he could have just issued a warrant, get the ball rolling, get the civil servants. Because I understand sometimes the civil servants are slow to move, and the civil servants are under his charge. And he has the authority over them, more authority over the civil servants than the Premier has, than the government has. So if the Premier needed help, for example, in prodding the civil service to speed up the allocation or appropriation process, certainly he could get help from the governor, and that would be a joint accommodation and a cooperative venture.
Well,
but to come out and make a public display what appeared to be a high-handed action, that's questionable.
Well, according to the governor, even though members of the press at the last press briefing pressed to find out, okay, so you've taken this action that struck the government, especially the premier, by surprise. Can you tell us that at this stage that everything still remains hunky-dory? And the governor says yes, and he and the premier are working together in regard to this decision that he's made to ensure that the monies are passed on. And this latest warrant that he has issued is essentially to find out what are the sums of money that have already been dispersed regarding what he's been requesting since November. Where are these sums? Who has, issued them, and what is left to be received and by when?
Well, certainly, there seems to be a double speak. You're working with the premier, you're all cooperating to get this thing done, but the premier responded immediately to the action, to the governor's action in, I don't know if I say a hostile is a strong word, but with some measure of concern, obviously based on his statement. And so I don't know how that cooperation works when the premier reacts the way he does. Also, as I said, that action has a direct impact on the political process of the Virgin Islands.
Of course.
Because now, you give the opposition, for example, an opportunity to say that the government brought disgrace to the country by having the governor use his reserve powers, which was never done before. Mm-hmm. And that becomes a political issue.
Yes,
that becomes a platform, a campaign platform issue.
And that's exactly why some persons
are
anxious.
And so it could be seen as an intervention in the country's political process.
Yes.
So, the governor has got his way of putting things, but certainly the actions and some of his words says something slightly different.
Otherwise.
Yeah. But, but again, we are a colony, and I think in his statement that he's not here to make popular decisions speaks to that level of high-handedness where, hey, listen, you could get mad all you want. I'm the boss, you're a colony, I'm the governor, I can make the decision if I want. And I made the decision, and whether you like it or not, I already made the decision. That's what that says.
And remember too that he demits office in a matter of months, I understand, between June and August, and he says that he doesn't want his successor to come and face the same situation that he's been facing. So clearly he's laying the groundwork for...
Exactly, that's another good point. Is he preparing the land for the new governor to come with his agenda? He brought his agenda. I don't know whether he's fulfilled his total mission or not, but certainly he appears to want to leave a playing field where the new governor could go forward with his agenda.
Yes.
So it's all planned out, and as I said, we are a colony. We have made no preparations for self-determination. We've made no preparations to establish the institutions that we need in order for the population to feel confident in governance. And so, we have to blame ourselves as a people for the situation that we're in. Listen.
And this is another reason why the next round of constitutional review will also be instructive for the residents of this territory who want several questions answered, especially as it pertains to what level of devolution or sovereignty the BVI wants from the UK going forward, and what is it that the UK is willing to give in turn?
Well, the government, Peter Gay, has certain things it has to do to clean up some of the things that is falling behind. It's important for us to have our accounting system in order. The accounts, the audited accounts, I think, need to come forward. If you say that a project costs X amount of dollars and you have a considerably large overrun, there needs to be some sort of account for that. You need to explain to the people. It doesn't have to be that there's something wrong. You know, you decided instead of building some one-pole kiosk with some thatch house, you build a whole strong kiosk that will stand 200 mile hour winds, and you know it could be your alterations and the other things that you added. Cost the extra money. You just have to say, well, this is the extra money that it costs. This is where the money went. And we are proud of the port. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. I enjoy the port, the pier. I go out there all the time. I hang out. I have drinks, eat, listen to music. It's fabulous.
I remember too the other day, Minister Vanterpool spoke out about the dividends paid out and the increase, near doubling of visitors via the expanded cruise pier.
Absolutely,
so
this is the first time in our history that we've had over 1 million tourists a year. And certainly that's something to be proud of, and that's something to talk about. But you know, there needs to be a level of explanation. I don't think there's anything wrong in saying, you know, here is what we spend the money on. This is why we don't have the accounts. The accounts are coming soon. These are, you know, and correct the things that needs to be corrected, and then move forward from there and restore the confidence of the public, in the electorate, in the government, so that we could now plan to move forward. I don't think that this is really such a great setback, you know, and we have to look at it from the perspective that we are, in fact, a colony. You know, as I said before, as I said last week on Peter Gay, overseas territories is a public relations term. You know, it's a term used to appease the international community that we no longer have colonies.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? But the fact of the matter is that a rose by any other name is still a rose, right? As they say, right? Yeah. So, you know, it's a colony. We are a colony. And the governor got the ultimate power. He's always had it in the Constitution. We haven't worked it.
Expect some amount of meddling, whether you like it or not.
And in order to prevent that meddling, we need to do what we need to do, not just for the governor or for the UK, but for us, for the general population, the electorate.
I remember in terms of, you spoke about accountability and projects, but remember too that the governor has indicated what some of those accountability require, especially in light of constitutional review, and those are key pieces of legislation, including this Human Rights Council, which is embedded in the Constitution, but is yet to see the light of day physically. So.
Yeah, and we had to strengthen our judicial system. We got to strengthen our security. We have to make sure that the population feels that they have a fair chance. Our procurement processes have to be transparent. You know, it's a small country. Everybody's talking, so news gets around. So we have to make sure that all of our institutions are functioning optimally, and that we are able to advance ourselves constitutionally and with public confidence, so that we could do the things that we need to do. We got to go. Peter gave us it was interesting discussion, and
Yes, it was.
Good news items there. So we look forward to the news. You could make sure, tell us, wrap things up.
Remember, viewers, that you can check out these stories from our JTV newsroom on Facebook, YouTube, and the jtvlive.net website.